So I wanted to react to this video about a woman named Najla Tammy Kepler from Texas. She's an American that converted from Christianity to Islam. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it and watch some of her testimony and let you know what I think. So let's go ahead and listen to some of this.
Angela Tammy Kepler, can you tell us briefly about your background?
Angela Tammy Kepler is a born and raised Texan who loves sports and the
Oh, and the channel this comes from is Eternal Passenger.
outdoors. I grew up playing basketball on basketball team and volleyball teams and running the mile. Enjoyed writing poetry, drawing. I even won an art competition when I was in high school. My
So sounds like a pretty standard American upbringing.
parents divorced when I was 5. My father remarried to my stepmother when I was 10. Environment I grew up in, school and church and things like this, you have a responsibility. You need to give back. You need to make a difference. So that's what I strove for. I had the opportunity to see 2 different types of Christianity. One my father had chosen when he was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I went to live with my mom and I saw another type of Christianity in the Baptist church, Protestant mentality with the Trinity and celebration of Christmas and things like this. That gave me a different perspective. I got benefit from both churches, but I was still a person in search of something more.
How was your life in regards to faith? Did you have any faith before?
So pay attention to that. She was in search of something more.
I had faith. Fortunately, I was raised in, like I said, my father's chosen church, and that one was very disciplined.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. We saw that 80% of our audience, including Eternal Passenger.
Fast forward that a little bit.
I had always been in a religious environment. When my mother found this church too rigid,
It almost sounds like when she'll talk about it, almost sounds kind of like a fundamentalist type church where, you can't do this, you can't do that. Everything is very rigid. The Bible gives us more freedom than that. Obviously, we don't have the freedom to do anything we want. Grace and Jesus dying for us doesn't mean that we can just do whatever we want. That's not the case. You have to pray and decide those things for yourselves. Anything that's obviously not in the Word, anything that's outside of the Word that isn't given to us specifically. But I'm not going to go too much into that. So let's listen to what she says.
She decided not to go anymore. But because I'd been raised in my father's church, there was a very distinct difference. In my father's church, for example, they focused a lot on the first commandment of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him. In my dad's church, they had done a lot of research. And in that research, they found that most of the holidays that are celebrated in America have some sort of paganistic background.
Who hasn't heard this argument before? I'm not saying that none of it has any kind of pagan background, because there's a lot of things that are not biblical within the holidays and stuff like that. That's true, but I do have a couple things to say about this when she brings up like Christmas and stuff like that.
Or even there's verses in the Bible that speak against the different aspects of those holidays. For example, in my dad's church, we didn't celebrate Christmas because, first of all, the verses of the Bible indicate that Jesus wasn't born that time of year.
That's true. That's actually true. Jesus was not born on December 25th, that we're pretty much aware of. We believe he was born more towards like the end of September, around like the Day of Atonement, maybe, kind of sort of in that time period. That's kind of what we know. So no, that's actually not true. Jesus was not born on December 25th.
Year. So that's not his birthday, December 25th. And second, there's verses in the Bible in Jeremiah indicate that the decoration of the tree was actually a paganistic behavior. They used to sell.
Okay, so this whole argument is not even valid here because that verse in that she's talking about has nothing to do with Christmas trees. It's talking about bringing a tree into your house, chopping it down, and carving an idol out of it, and then decorating it with like silver and gold. It's not talking about cutting down a pine tree, putting presents under it, putting ornaments on it. That's not what that verse is about. So you can look up that verse yourself and you can read it in context. You can read the whole entire verse. It's talking about carving an idol out of a tree. So that's actually doesn't have anything to do with Christmas. So I don't know. For me, it sounds like she did a lot of like just kind of listening to what people say and not really going and reading it for herself or researching it for herself. I mean, same with, these people. I mean, whoever believes this, all you have to do is go and read the verse and you can clearly see that it's talking about chopping down a tree and carving an idol out of it.
Celebrate with decorating it with silver and gold and worshiping the spirit in the tree. We're supposed to believe.
So no, it doesn't say you're worshiping a tree. It says you carve an idol out of the tree and then you worship the idol. So has nothing to do with Christmas. So just keep that in mind.
Only in God and not worship anything else. And they made that very clear. We didn't even celebrate birthdays. There would be a cake with candles and you light the candles and you make a wish, but your wishes are supposed to be turned to God, the one who can provide. In my dad's church, we realized that this is like fire worship. So yeah.
That's a little extreme. This is like, yeah. So I've seen these kind of videos online and I know that there's people that believe this kind of stuff that really take it way too far to the extreme, like blowing out a candle and making a wish as fire worship. No, I don't think so. This is just something little kids do. It's just like a traditional thing, and nobody's really believing that the fire in the candle is going to grant them a wish or anything. If you do believe that, then you have a problem. You for sure are worshiping fire. But yeah, this is not the case. So yeah, that's a little bit extreme.
I had faith, but it wasn't enough. I didn't know the name of my Lord, that is Allah.
Wait, she went to church and she didn't know the name of God? She didn't know Yahweh, the name of God? She didn't know the passages in Moses where God tells Moses his name? I don't know what kind of church she was going to. Honestly, these churches have failed her. If she converted to Islam, I don't know. I don't know what they taught her if she didn't even know God's name, because he gives us his name. You can watch the previous video to hear a little bit about that.
I didn't know exactly how he wanted me to worship him, but I didn't know it at the time. There were indications of it in my dreams because I was having nightmares.
So she didn't know how God wanted her to worship him. I'm not sure how she went to church, went to 2 different churches, and also didn't know that. So again, these churches have failed her if she didn't know how to worship God, because I mean, it's quite simple. Prayer and fasting and, worship. Spending time in the Word and learning His Word and talking to God. Being a good representative of Him, singing praises to God. These are all ways of worship. So I don't know how she went to church and didn't know those things. These churches have definitely failed if these simple things, not knowing the name of God and not knowing how to worship God, that's kind of crazy to me. So yeah.
I was not at peace with where I was. I didn't feel safe.
Maybe she was having nightmares because these churches were not real churches of God. Maybe these were not real spirit-filled churches. Maybe these, just because it's a church, it doesn't mean it's of God. Just because somebody says they're of God doesn't mean that they are. They say, they claim God or whatever. That doesn't really mean anything. So it doesn't sound like she found the real true God in either of these churches either, which is really sad.
Especially as a teen, that search became deeper and deeper because the feeling became more and more unsettling.
So she's saying as a teen, so maybe this is what she experienced as a child. So maybe as a child, she didn't really even understand what was going on at church. I mean, who doesn't go to church as a kid and not really understand until they get older, until they get to be an adult?
It's like, okay, what's the truth? Where are the answers? One time I thought, okay, get out your legal pad. You're in debate. Find the answers, search out, research what the truth is. So I got out my yellow legal pad and I wrote my questions and made an appointment with my mom's minister and went to the church, entered this very luxurious dark green leather and rich brown wood. And it's like, okay, did I just enter an attorney's office or what,
So, like, why is she making fun of, like, the leather couch and the nice wood desk that the church pastor had? I mean, I've seen pictures of mosques and they look pretty darn extravagant. So, I mean, I don't really see how that's a comparison here. It's not like you're walking into a wooden shack when you walk into a mosque. I mean, they're pretty nice as well, and I'm pretty sure that Imam has a desk and a chair in his office. So I'm just saying I don't really see why that is significant in this testimony.
Yeah, it was a big church, but I was expecting something more humble, something more modest. Anyway, so I sat down in the big leather chair right in front of his massive wooden desk.
Oh, his massive wooden desk and his big leather chair. I mean, he could have got it from donation for all she knows. Now, I'm not saying these megachurches don't use their funds in a wrong way, because I can tell you that 100% they for sure do. That does happen, but this is not always the case. I mean, somebody could have donated it to him for all she knows. I mean, not necessarily. I'm just saying.
And so I started asking my questions. I said, I've had this experience in my father's church and I'm seeing this in your church. So why the differences? You're using the same book. You both say you're Christians. So why the difference? Why do you celebrate Christmas? Why do you eat pork? He gave me some answers, but where he got his answers, I couldn't determine. Was it his own thoughts? Was it the church organization's thoughts, or something he had learned in theology school? Whatever his answers were, they were insufficient because he didn't open up the book, the Bible, and say, here's the answer.
Well, that was definitely wrong on the pastor's part, if he didn't open up the Bible and show her answers. And if he was just doing things to be traditional, or if he was just doing things out of tradition, or if he was just doing things out of, trying to bring unbelievers into the church or something like that, then yeah, that's just not cool. And he definitely failed her by not having answers. And I think this is why a lot of people do leave the faith, is because pastors and teachers and leaders don't have answers. And there needs to be somebody in the church to give those answers when people have them.
It left me very unsettled. So I let him finish. I left the meeting rather disappointed.
But that shouldn't have been her end all. She should have kept looking for answers. I mean, did she go to God? Did she pray? Did she read other material? Did she get other books? Did she search the Bible herself for these answers? Because if she did, she would find them. God tells us to seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be opened. So I don't know why she didn't do that. Because I've had plenty of situations like that where I asked a pastor something and they couldn't help me, or I asked somebody, a supposed leader in church, and they couldn't help me. They didn't have answers for me. But do you think that I stopped there? Definitely didn't stop there. I've researched for years to try to find answers to my questions and to know the truth. So she shouldn't have just stopped there. She should have just kept going on her own.
And so I stopped going to church and tried to fill my life with other things. Like I said, I was on sports teams and I was studying anyway, and I was interested in, art.
And also I'm wondering, did he give her the wrong answers, or did he just not give her the answers she wanted? Because what draws her into Islam makes me think that, the truth of the gospel was just not enough for her. It was just not good enough for her. It almost made it sound to me like she wanted a faith that her good works made a difference and that they would count more than God's grace. So that's kind of what I'm thinking so far.
Drawing and poetry and stuff like that, but it wasn't working. I was still feeling empty. I was still feeling lost. I was still feeling fear. So I thought, okay, I know there's a God. I know there were prophets. I know that he sent books, but I didn't know what that was. So I started praying, oh God, give me wisdom.
So still at this point, did she search her Bible? Did she read? Did she research? I don't know. She doesn't say. She just says, that she prayed, but that's it.
I wanted guidance. I wanted to know what the truth was and how to apply it. So I thought, okay, I need to find somewhere to enrich my soul, because on my own, it's not enough. Yes, prayer, supplication, morning and night, oh God, give me wisdom, was something, but it wasn't enough. I had gone to the church that my mom had chosen, the Baptist church in the town, which was half an hour away from where I went to university. So I went there and I found people inspired by the love of God, especially their appreciation for Jesus was evident. And, their care for one another, their smiling faces, their kind words, their helpful nature. This was all very appealing. And so I thought, okay, let me give that church a try. And so I started going on Sundays to this church, which was on the other side of town. It was a huge church. One of the things I liked about it was that there were no images in the church. But after going a few times, I began to realize, again, this is not what I'm looking for. This is not what's going to fulfill me, but at least I'm in an environment that's reminding me of God and that is helping me to learn some of the words of the Bible that are inspiring and fulfilling and things like that.
So the Bible is not just to be inspired. It's not just to be in an environment of God for church. I want to know what exactly she was looking for that she wasn't finding. Now, I get it. Churches, I feel the same way all the time that I go to churches that I'm like, this is just not it for me. But honestly, that doesn't deter me from God or Jesus in any way. Whether I ever find the perfect church or the, as perfect as possible church or not, that's not going to make me leave the faith or convert to another faith, because church is church is church. Church is people. Of course, God is in church, but at the end of the day, there's people are flawed, people are sinful, and, that's just what you're going to get. So you can't just abandon your faith because you didn't get what you wanted at church. I've had plenty of churches that didn't work out for me, or I had church hurt, or the leaders failed me, or people took advantage of their power or something like that. But that has nothing to do with my love for God. It has nothing to do with my love for Jesus. I'll never ever will I fall away from the God that I know, because I love him for who he is, not for who the church is. Churches, people will always fail you, but God never fails.
Time went on and my prayer was continuing. Turns out God was going to send me some help. I had a mutual friend at the
So she thought that this was God. This was the wrong God that sent her help.
University I was going to, who had also been going to the student center on campus, and his name was Rome. Rome had a friend, interestingly, was different. He was Turkish and a Muslim, but he decided to come to the church to see what it was like. I knew for sure that Rome was trying to help him become a Christian. What this person's intentions were in coming to the church, I wasn't sure. But when I met him, I was intrigued by something that he did. And that was, we went on a canoe trip, a youth activity for the church. We went on a canoe trip. When we stopped for lunch, he asked which one of the meals didn't have any pork in them. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I still was not eating pork.
So she's still very focused on the law and legalism and what we're supposed to be doing, and just even like I said, ceremonial dietary laws and things like that. I personally don't even really eat red meat, just because it's not really good for your body and it's not the best. It's rare that I will eat it, maybe once a year on a holiday or something. But I mean, as far as us having to, if that has nothing to do with salvation and saving faith, that's still going back to did I break any of the laws? Well, whether you ate pork or whether you yelled at your husband or whether you stole a pen off of somebody's desk, you still sinned. So even if you go your whole life and don't eat pork, you're still going to break one of the commandments in some other way. So focusing on those kind of things are not going to get you there. It's not going to get you into heaven. Because if you break one, you broke all 612 commandments of the law.
Out of my beliefs that I had learned from my father's church. And so I thought, wow, that's interesting. Why is he not eating pork? And he said something about like, it's part of my religion. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. This person turned out to be very helpful in my search, an instrument that God was using to help me. This person in 1991,
Sorry, 613 commandments. I think I said 12. 613 commandments of the Torah. If you broke one, but you kept the law of not eating pork, you're still going to hell. So, I mean, there you have it.
and he started bringing me little brochures from the mosque about the basics of Islam. Interestingly, I found a lot of similarity in these things with the things that I had learned in my father's church. He brought me another brochure. This one was about a book named the Quran.
That's so funny because when I was younger, I dated a Muslim guy, and I remember he was telling me, and I didn't know anything about Islam back then, and he was telling me, I said, oh, well, what do you believe? And he's like, oh, we believe in Jesus, and we believe in this, and we believe in that. And I thought to myself, oh, wow, it must be that, it must be kind of the same. Like, it must be really similar. But it's funny because now that I know so much more, now everything I know about the Quran after reading it and about Islam and what it really teaches, we're not the same at all. So she seems very deceived.
And this book was only God's words. The words were only his. With the Bible, it's unclear who the authors of the chapters are.
Okay, how is it unclear that of the authors of the chapters? I mean, they're literally the books are literally by name. I mean, Jeremiah, Zechariah, John, Matthew, Samuel. I mean, a Psalm of David. I mean, I don't know how it's unclear who the authors are. It's actually very clear. I don't know where she's getting this. I mean, they're literally named after the authors. There's really no like debate there. I mean, we know the Exodus and the Torah was written by Moses. I mean, I don't know what's unclear about that. I'm not really sure.
Whose words are written there, whereas the Quran, the whole thing is God's words.
So the whole thing is not, so the Bible, so for her, the whole Bible is not God's words. I don't know who told her this. I don't know where she got this in her head. But the Quran was also written by a man. The Quran was also written by a man. It was written by Muhammad. And the fact that it was only written by one man is actually more suspicious to me than a book of writings from multiple people that all are giving the same idea, that they're not giving conflicting information. Now, I'm not saying that there's no discrepancies in the Bible, but the discrepancies that there are, the inconsistencies there are, they're not anything that the Bible doesn't contradict itself's teachings. The only thing that it contradicts is like, how did Judas die? Well, who cares how Judas died? Who cares whether he died from hanging himself or his organs spilled out, over somewhere in a field? I mean, does that change the gospel? Does that change that Jesus died for us? Does that change what God said in the Old Testament? No, it doesn't. It doesn't change anything. So, just little discrepancies. Accounts of some of the accounts of the Gospels about certain things in life, in the life of Jesus or Mary or whoever. These discrepancies don't change the whole theme of the book and the way that God teaches us. These are just people giving account for things that they remembered that happened in whatever order they remember it happened. So if I go to the store with you and I say, hey, we went to the store in the morning, and then you're like, no, we went to the store around noontime. Does it change the fact that we went to the store? No, it doesn't. So this is my point. So if she's saying that, she left Christianity because it's not God's book and it was written by men. Well, I mean, the Quran was also written by a man. I mean, the Bible claims that the people in the Bible that wrote God's words, they claim that it's the word of God, and Muhammad claims the same thing. So why believe him over the people in the Bible? I don't know.
And I found that very profound. A book that's flawless, a book that's only God's words, and it's promised to be protected till the end of time. Because, by the way, the world's last prophet.
Wait. The Bible also promised to be protected and preserved until the end of time. The Bible also promises this. I don't think she read her Bible. I really don't, because if she did, she would know that the Bible also says these things. Now, the people in these churches messed up because she doesn't know this stuff, and she was in church. So church, y'all need to do better here, because for some reason she doesn't know this, or like I said, I don't know if she just didn't read her Bible. I don't know. But I mean, this is also it's the same.
Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was the one that received it. It can't be his words because he was an illiterate man. And
okay, wait, he can't be his words because he was an illiterate man. And okay, wait,
had no knowledge of the previous religion.
Okay, he had no knowledge of the previous religions. Okay, that's not true, because he did have knowledge from the Jews and the Christians. If you read the Quran, it says that the Torah and the Gospels and the prophets and the Psalms and the scrolls of Abraham, he talks, that these are all holy books, that you should go ask the people of the book and the children of Israel and all these things. And he talks about Ishmael and Abraham and the black stone and all these things. I mean, he lived in Arabia with Christians and Jews. So yeah, he did have previous knowledge of these religions because he lived with these people. I'm pretty sure that he heard, he heard of these things, that he could have heard these stories been passed down, just like anybody else in ancient times who didn't know how to read. They still knew. I mean, even Jews that didn't know how to read, they knew there was an oral Torah. There were, you would go to synagogue and you would hear it, and you would hear the word preached, and you would remember it, and people would memorize it just by the people who could read speaking it out to them. So that doesn't really matter. It doesn't really, that's not really valid.
This was pure revelation, and that inspired me.
So the people of the Bible who could read and write, they didn't inspire you. So those people were all lying. So all the people that wrote the Bible, all the prophets, everybody in there, they were just lying. They didn't really receive revelation from God. But that's such an oxymoron, because Muhammad says that the Torah and the Gospels were also from God, and the prophets. So I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me.
We're talking about 1991. No internet, almost no access to anything about Islam in English. I was blessed with a tiny book.
Okay. So she has no resources to check on what the Quran really says in English. So she's going into a religion just based on what people are telling her, and she doesn't really know. She doesn't really know what it says. She doesn't really know. All she knows is what they've told her that she should believe. That's a problem.
That this person had found in our university library 7 floors of books, and he found this book, Imam Nawawi's 40 Hadith. And this tiny book, it took us 2 nights to read it, because it wasn't just read it and go on. It was something that you read and you have to go, I had just found the answer. What God wanted from me. It told me who my God was Allah. It told me what religion He had chosen for me. It told me little things about how to live my life in the best way. And that's completely true. That's the difference between wise words and the words of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Okay, so the Bible for her is just wise words. It doesn't tell you how to live. It doesn't tell you, how you should live your life or who your God is. I mean, she must have never opened a Bible if that's the case, because the Exodus has all 613 laws of the Torah to tell you how to live. And I mean, the Gospels where Jesus talks, it tells you how to live. I mean, there's so much in there. And the whole Bible, it tells you who your God is. I don't know. I don't know where she's getting this to where, she's saying that this gave her all of this information in this little hadith, but nowhere in the Bible does it say any of that kind of stuff. None of that information. I really think she just went to church, sat in a seat, and she must not have read her Bible. There's no way, because if she did, she would know this. Or if maybe she read it as a child and didn't understand it. I don't know, but it's just interesting how you could just throw it all away, even though your prophet Muhammad says to honor what the Bible says. So you can't really just throw that away. I don't know.
In the hadith and the verses of the Quran. Because in the hadith and the Quran, it's completely true. It's fully comprehensive because it is provided to us.
Is it though? Is it fully true? I mean, it contradicts itself in teaching, not just in like little idiosyncrasies like, oh, how someone died. It contradicts itself. I mean, even in like the verse that I talked about in a previous video about how it says that you pay for your own sins, but then it says in Sahih Muslim 6665 that Abu Musa reported that Allah's messenger said, when it will be the day of resurrection, Allah would deliver every Muslim, a Jew or a Christian, and say, that is your rescue from hellfire. So, okay, I don't know. I mean, is it all true? I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff in here that we're talking about. On one end, it says that you should respect women and give them rights, and on another end, it tells you that you could beat your wife as a last resort. So this is very contradictory. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that works.
This religion and the teachings in it are provided to us by the one who knows everything, the all-knowing. And fortunately, in Christianity, I had learned this name, the all-knowing, but I hadn't been exposed to that knowledge completely until I found Islam.
And that's pretty sad that she's saying now that she knew the all-knowing, the creator, that this was who he was, but she didn't have any knowledge about him going to church. We need to do better, people. We need to do better, Christians. We need to do better, churches, because that's super, super duper sad that this happened. And now she is walking in darkness. She's walking in deception, and, she's totally fallen away. I personally don't think she was saved. I don't think she ever was really a Christian. I think she just kind of showed up. I think God only God knows. But from what she's saying, it doesn't really sound to me like she was really a follower of Jesus. It sounds to me like she was more concerned about living a good life and following the laws and making sure she does enough to be able to get into heaven. And you know what? If that's the case, she did find what she was looking for in Islam. But it is super duper sad that this happened to her and that she didn't get what she needed. But at the same time, we're all liable for the decisions that we make. And I mean, even if there wasn't the internet back then, I'm pretty sure she had a Bible that she could have read and she could have found these things out for herself. So, so these are my thoughts on this video. I'm not going to watch the whole thing because it's like 30 minutes long, and we're already 30 minutes into my commentary about it. But let me know what you think. If you're not a Christian, obviously you're not going to agree with me, and you can say whatever you want in the comments. But if you are a Christian, tell me what you think about this, and if you agree that the church failed her and that the church needs to do better.